Sheila here with Sirius Talis Moon. This is Soul Hour, Moon Day, Sun and Venus in Capricorn. And Mars, at 14 degrees Capricorn, Mars is applying to oppose Jupiter. That is retrograde in Cancer. Moon is 11 degrees in Leo. And this is a lunar nakshatra, lunar mention that has to do with healing of the body. And healing of the body is associated with the serpent. And Lilith in Sagittarius reminds us now that the midheaven is in a sign that is associated with the serpent as well, and even considered the 13th sign, or Orpheochus. The serpent has to do with the life energy, the Kundalini energy, the sexual energy. There's two stories of creations. One, man and woman born equal. And then we have a break in Genesis, and then there's another lady suddenly, and she was born when the man was sleeping from the man's body, so that she would be serving of the man, and dumb fuckery, not compatible with sex, love, intimacy. And we have entire segments of humanity trying to go by this, ignore it, swipe it under the rug, and it arises. Okay, Lilith in Sagittarius reminds us that the repression of the feminine, if tomorrow there would be only feminine goddesses, no male god, we would have one half of the perspective of the world completely missing. We'd only have what women see, what women think, what women this, what women that. We'd not have the other half that would be completely missing. For example, if we would not know that in secret societies they rape the boys, the youth rape the young boys, everybody rapes everybody, and then the adult marries a young boy, and that constrains their sexuality, and they have to harm their loved ones. So no woman, whatever she wears, whatever she this, whatever she that, is not going to be hurt, whether she's the lover or the partner or the whatnot. And also, even gay marriages. Okay, even if we acknowledge LGBTQ rights, everything. Of course, under pressure and stress, there's eroticism that can develop, but we have to ask ourselves, is it trauma bond? Or is it a natural connection that maybe was forged through crisis, but is actually a love that is actually a loving bond? Now, the repression of the feminine god is just as no, and the fact that if I talk about the secret society, okay, the fact that all that happened in secret, it created a world where women began to say, okay, I don't live in this courtesan-cartisan division anymore. No, I don't hate sex, but sex has to be pleasurable also for me. No, why do people have to choose between sex is pleasurable, intimacy, love? Maybe what's missing, and why ever would men be behaving like that to women? Because, I mean, we're naturally procreating together. If they're gay, then okay, then they can be with men. Women can be with women. That's not a problem. But what's the reason behind this? And then women begin to go against sexual harassment, against it. They didn't even know that in the secret societies is the fundamental glue that forces everyone into trauma bonds. As a cult-like eroticism, cult-like religion. And that even their encounters with women have to be through the veil of, if the boy was a whore, then when they are with women, even though it could be the wife, the mother of children, then to have a sex with her, she has to be like the whore, because that's what they used to in those secret society with the men. Now, this is the closest equivalent to half of humanity repressed. Before we had women oppression, half of humanity, men oppressed, living in Hamaspartan. The warrior culture. But it's not warrior. Warrior is the one to defend from rape. And then they were persecuted. Within the persecution, came even closer together. Then comes a woman that says, wait a second. If my grandfather, that was Holocaust survivor, was somewhat bruising his hand over places he shouldn't have in children, and my own mother said, never, never, never brought me next to my grandfather to protect, then that means it's not for the Holocaust. Let's say I would be born to grandfather's family, who would protect me? And they would expect my mother to be married at I don't know what age. It's no. And those people that lived with that, they lived with the Holocaust within, and the intrigue of enmeshment. Because people need the closeness, the loving, the... This is the result of entire sector of women goddesses repressed. No says the serpent is crushed, and this is what we get, is this intricate trauma that create mass disasters. And then they blame the women for the Holocaust. They blame women. They blame people that went out of the cult and said, "I don't want to live in that closed cult anymore. I want to live like a normal person." And for the women, over nothing. They were seeking for place, maybe that they wouldn't be raped. Not to mention that there was a Jewish human trafficking that trafficked Jewish girls and did bloodletting rituals, supposedly because they needed blood at the war, and they worked with the Nazis. This is not just Jews. It's Christians and it's Islam and it's indigenous and it's not indigenous. There are even indigenous people, Native Americans, say we belong to Yisrael, Israel. Okay, maybe. Now, Lilith in Sagittarius, looking at Sedna here, reminds us when we pick out entire class of divinely associated beings. Sedna and Beta Persei and Bridget and Selene and Hecate and Medusa and Andromeda, all of these, and we set them aside in Lilith, and we set them aside, we say, this with the devil. It affects our erotic life, it affects our family life, it's affecting our economy, it's affecting our politics, it's affecting because it's something so predatory. Just like if we did the opposite. If we took, I don't know, Zeus and Ares, Ares the god of war that fights against rape. If we didn't have Ares, we say, oh, we would not have war. Uh, we do have war. Oh, but for Ares, people had to sacrifice for Ares. What if we just stopped sacrificing for Ares and started taking action against rape? Which is why Ares would bring wars to kill the rapists. He was the only god that didn't rape. Mars opposing Jupiter is Mars defending from the vice of Jupiter, which is incest, rape in the family. Jupiter is so benevolent, loving, benevolent, positive, but in his optimism, he can forget that he's not eternal child when it comes to children. And here is the thing where entire class of female goddesses repressed and oppressed, then it affects things so much so that there is no place for this thing called a woman. And what happens? Women don't become women because they can't become women. There's no archetype woman. There's archetype whore. And then people go into their inner child, and they stay in their inner child, and they stay with the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s. Why? Because there's no archetype woman in society, only archetype whore. So even younger men don't grow into archetype woman, and they don't have women in their lives. In those societies, even boys are taught to rape their mothers. If there's no place for a woman to be child, and also for a man to be child in societies, and the man, when he is raped, is called a whore. And this is his only accentuation to the archetype of woman. Because by their God is only men. And they fear the spirituality of the woman because they think that the woman can usurp the man, but no. This is what happened with seventh. God created man, woman, in the image of God, born equal, and then, boom, something else. Lilith reminds us that this spiritual oppression creates such twists and turns in society that even when we try to think in terms of equality, okay? But if the spirituality is not equal, as not man was created equal, woman was created equal, they have their own, properties and so on. We don't even have that. That oppression creates other systemic oppressions that affect the eroticism. So we have walking around women, if they didn't die, then 30, 40, 50, 60, they, they, they don't, no archetype woman. And either the sexuality not developed or they stayed in a child. And people around them, even younger, only know sexuality from if you rape this, it is a whore. If you are raped, you are a whore. All they know is whore. They don't know sex. They don't know intimacy. And in family life, yes, but then you need to go to whore because then she Madonna. Or you rape her in the family and then she also whore in the bed. Then your social group is being persecuted and you wonder why. Because it funds itself by child and human trafficking. And you deal with the fact that all women around you, no matter what age, never got to be women. Because the non-erotic phase was never meant. The minute it has, I'm sorry, the infant had something else between the legs, it was already eroticized. And also with the boys. Now comes Saturn return. Saturn maturation. And even though the man wants to heal himself, he has already accumulated a lot of traumas. He tried to say, well, oh, but that person is older than me. Did you rape that person? Were you social group in conspiring to traffic that person? That was in their child state, try to heal their inner child and connect with the non-erotic self. But where are the adults? They're trafficking children. But this adult didn't agree to traffic children. When you think to build a home, which means real estate, you think how many infants should be raped and trafficked so that is enough to have home ownership, to grow family for the children. That's real estate today. Now, Lilith in Sagittarius, and I say this not with hatred, not with blame, not even with shame. I say this because if we address this, then we understand that there is a choice, there is a point of interference, there is a point where this can change. And if we have deprived, if we forgot about Lilith, it is only the demon, the one that snatches the children, the one that is the one, and then if people put next to the bed of the infant, Lilitu, Liliti, Lilita, they invoke Lilith. Okay? They don't cast away Lilith, they invoke Lilith. Then everybody's calling Lilith, calling Lilith, calling Lilith. Then Lilith arises, and everybody's like, she's a demon, devil, go away, fool, fool. It's not about matriarchy and not about patriarchy. And here Lilith in Sagittarius is really, really, really after the transformation of Scorpio. Reminding us, looky here, you live in society, your gods are not women, and even if, let's say, Venus is worshipped in such a way, and big respect to Annika Lucas for talking about this, in such a way that her body is to be worshipped, but it's not her own property. It's of the public. That her body is not hers. As a child. And that permeates, it's a nervous system that permeates to the collective nervous system, collective set of possible sexual fantasies, kinks, arousal patterns. And to try to make people shut up about this would only be bigger problems like a Holocaust or genocide. Or for the people that chose to live in those cult-like societies and know the dynamics and say, okay, is persecuted and these are deep bonds and so on. Okay, this is a part of the side effect. That you can't be angry at the people that chose differently. And also need a home, in income, a currency, a life that's not based on cult-like whore, or whore society. And then everybody, oh, we need to shut up because what they do for people that speak in their society. Okay, then humanity will go extinct. Gog Magog, everybody fights everybody. Then boom, asteroid, end of the world. Amazing. Like it's a possible timeline. I'm not saying it's not, but people cannot live in that type of dumbfuckery. Mm-hmm. No, thank you. Lilith in Sagittarius reminds us that our spiritual faiths, beliefs, religions are not out there. They're affecting our everyday lives. Mars in Capricorn, opposing Jupiter in Cancer, reminds us that the fate of our people, the beliefs of our people, at war around resources, Saturn, survival structures, they're being, okay, the conflict, the religious conflict there. We can't just say, oh, this is our culture. Your culture is to rape children. There's no archetype for woman in your culture. And if there is archetype, then she's of the public. She's not her own individual identity. Can't you see that there is something trying to emerge in your society that you keep trying to kill in silence? And what happens when a society kills and silences? Then the same thing is done to society. On the counter, what happens? Okay, the counter side, what happens to society that doesn't kill and oppress? It becomes society that even if people say, ah, but you're from here, but you're from there, but you're from there, we say, yes, we have female gods, we have male gods. They're equal to one another. If my gnosis, there's my partner's gnosis. We have my land and my home, my partner land and home. Always for a person to have housing. What do you mean? How can person grow if they're not nourished by the land? What if a person can't pay rent? Then they leave and they rest until they recover, and I don't know whatever is for them. Maybe they transitioning from, I don't know, from mother to career woman, or from a child to adult. I don't know. Well, they're not going to eat. They're not going to. Well, in our society, they're homeless and trafficked. But that explains why you're persecuted and kidnapped and trafficked. At least to know that it's not okay for society to be like that is already tending to it, because it's a consciousness, it's a fabric of reality. Trying to keep it, to silence it, only creates situation where people have to almost forced to speak deeper truths. The more you try to silence someone, the more they understand that there's something that you're trying to protect that's even bigger. And if the way that one tries to protect another is perpetuating harm on them, then there is a need to break through from this pattern. It cannot be that the entire world changes. To loot a gas or oil mine, we can simply kidnap the president and his spousey. What is fighting drug lords? Who are the biggest drug lords? Britain built its empire on making China addicted to opiates. United States, same. And China, but China was smart. It made people addicted to cheap technology that work. And with the politics of consumerism, people get addicted to purchase because what are they going to talk about? The things that I talk about in their families. What do you think? MK Ultra is different than the Holocaust. Moon in the eighth house of United States. Emotional traumas is the hidden asset of United States. To whom? Two men, two women, two children. Mercury, Venus, Jupiter. Around father and mother issues. Sun in the eighth house. Yes, I have moon there, so I have moon in the eighth house of United States. I see it emotionally a lot. And they swipe it under the rug, swipe it under the rug, swipe it under the rug. Then boom, can't. Because each and every household owner, which is the sun in the eighth house, is somehow enmeshed in that. Because they're part of the lineage of the hidden wealth, the hidden gold. Okay, sun in the eighth house. Also, Israel has sun in the eighth house, gold. Or gold around water, bodies of water. Israel, and land, a fixed land. The land that doesn't move through earthquake. That's Taurus. Okay, the land that sustained earthquake is Taurus, fixed land. That it would take an earthquake to shake. That's where the gold is. Netherlands, 1800 chart, Saturn in Aquarius. Architecture. Minerals. Where? In places open air. Saturn in the 8th house. This is the 1800 chart. There are other charts, but it's the 1800 chart. Saturn in the 8th house. And of course, bonds and debts that are played with in an unusual way. Not necessarily cunningly. Saturn doesn't mean cunningly. Saturn is rocks and minerals. Pluto, by the way, is oil. Pluto in Pisces is oil underneath the ocean. Israel has Pluto. Leo is oil where the gold is, or where the kingdom is, where the leaders are. There's oil. For example, in Caesarea, house of Bibi, underneath can be Pluto is oil. 11th house is also Abam. Israel was known for its textile factory, so to speak, and Pluto is nuclear energy in the 11th house, so a public house, something you're known for. Age of air. Now, back to the goddesses. It's not about the goddesses taking over the gods or something like that. No, it's simply an awareness that without the complete view of spirituality, we create something that is prone to this type of dynamics that we see today. Lilith in Sagittarius reminds us that when we cannot talk about equality and equity without talking about the spiritual facet, and when one is not allowed, then that harms the ability of the others. And this is where we create a more holistic picture. This is why Neptune is now is not in Libra, but is in applying to Aries, where the holistic unit of the I am, okay, is being discovered and reintegrated. Just like, for example, um, Neptune rules psychiatry. So let's say a father goes to a psychiatrist or psychologist, they go to a psychiatrist, and they try to work through an internal trauma. They receive some pills, then they harm the children. We know that the pharmaceutical company has a part in it. And then the doctor said to the family, please make sure that the father will take his pills. Then the father runs away. Now, why did the father abandon his children? Because he spotted that those pills make him act in ways that are not so. But everybody, the doctors told, oh, but make sure this person take the pills, which caused them to harm the children or kill themselves. How will that be discovered? And so if patient sovereignty is not accepted, then it causes a domino effect where sovereignty begins to be violated throughout the family. Now, what happened if that father was recovering from something that he was supposed to have been kidnapped as a child to some trafficking, child trafficking, and when he begins to heal, the psychologists begin to identify that and they try to silence and repress. So they say, take the pills, you must take the pills. And then the psychologist threatens that father's life. And that person is going through really weird things that were meant to terrify him from ever speaking in a hospital. And then they decide to abandon their family. Now everybody thinks, what about the bills? What about the this? What about the that? The person, they had a job, they had the this, they had the that. What about the children? The same is to ignore Lilith, Sedna, Beta per se, repress them, blame them in their rape, blame Sedna in her traffic and say, oh, she didn't want anyone, nobody was good for her. Because they were all participating in wealth consolidation, burying living dead body and with dead body of infants, and their hands were dirty with that trafficking, and she couldn't be touched by something that doesn't honor her. And the mothers were also ritually abused, so that when they would even try to touch their children, the child would escape the touch, not because of the mother, but because of all the traumas that are going ancestrally. And then, let's say mother would try to defend her child vehemently, and then say, oh, why you don't like this man? Oh, look, he's this man. This man could be older twice her age. This man could be married. But don't you like anyone? Are you lesbian? Are you this? Are you that? Not lesbian, just not with human trafficking. And those things that people dissociate from. The people come to clean and surface, and the things that surface. Because on a spiritual level, yes, we have one God. Our Father. Okay, what about our Mother? No, no, we don't worship the land. Only our Father. Okay, okay. Why are you digging half moons? Yes, because when the moon is half moon, then we dig, it holds the water, and then arid land can reforest it. You worship the land? No, I don't worship the land. Only our Father. Yes, yes, if not a Father, I wouldn't be talking here. You don't, no, you don't worship the land. Okay, I'm just trying to grow something in this arid land that doesn't have a lot of a lot of rain, and that brings back the natural crops because it holds the water. But it looks like a moon. Yes, it's also with the cycles of the. We worship the Father. Okay, fine. I'm just trying to grow something here. It's like, but did you know that in those tribes there, they would bury the girls that didn't want to marry all the men. So they would bury the girls, and then it slowly became desert. They say, yeah, well, by us, only by consent. Only by consent. The girls 18, and only by consent. Only by consent. Uh-huh. Lilith in Sagittarius is a reminder. It's like, hey, we're talking about equality here, equality there. Amazing, fantastic. And then people try to oppress that equality. They say, but I'm the younger person. Okay, you were at the voting age and you voted to vote women's rights out. This voting has an implication. I don't think that you should be disallowed to vote. You were also not 16 or 17. You were approaching your Saturn return, which is 27, 28, 29 even. But the women that said, these women, their ancestors raped the children for the real estate. These women want to inherit the house. So they go and bash women that say no to rape. If they don't talk about rape of children, they can consolidate wealth even with Buffett. If they do something about that, they're afraid to be excluded from society. When they consolidate the wealth even with Buffett, they will have watchers and psychic spires that will watch that if they want to, let's say, consolidate the wealth with Buffett, but give it to survivors of ritual abuse. Then these watchers will watch their tenants or the people they gave the properties to and begin to spiritually rape them. And if they will try to defend and protect, then extortion will begin to unfold. Because these women, when they were young, they also were ritually abused. And maybe they had to kill another woman that was looking like them. Is that not a lot to untangle? It's a lot to untangle. Lilith just reminds us of the spiritual facet. Where we take entire segments of humanity, repress and oppress them, it has implications. It's going to pop out somewhere. People, and you know what? People can try to shut up about it, they go to spiritual work, but they do talk. If there would be no spiritual, no rape, no spiritual, no not spiritual, no none of that, good life and so on and so forth, then people will be busy living their good life.